Hi, my name is Eric Johnson. Uh, these videos that I'm showing are of a trip that I took to Colorado last month looking for Fenn's treasure. For those of you who don't know who Forrest Fenn is and what his treasure is about, he is a man in his late 80s. 7 years ago, this is 2017, 7 years ago, he went out and planted a chest with gold and ancient artifacts in it. It's estimated to be valued at anywhere from $800,000 to $2 million. I suppose the intrinsic worth of the gold, etc., it would be amplified by the artifacts, and to some extent, the fact that it's Fenn's treasure is going to make stuff more valuable because it's famous in a small way. One thing that kind of surprised me about this trip was that a lot of people have never heard of this Fenn's treasure. That to me was strange. This particular audio and video clip that I'm doing is going to be the only video outside of my introduction that will be filmed after the fact. The rest of the video clips will be filmed POV, point of view. So you'll be seeing me actually as I'm searching the concept of where I'm going on this particular tangent of the Forrest Fenn investigation, this particular trip. So you'll just see it as I see it and respond to it. After a couple of days of looking at the internet, we'll be actually in Colorado. We'll be looking at we'll be looking at this. When I first got investigating this, it was very strange. There were a series of roads that I was looking at because of clues like High Water Creek and for high water or heavy loads and high water or whatever it was, and then Sheephead Road for the meek, for the sheep, and I got into all these tangents. And my days of drugs and drink are long past. I'm 63 years old, so I don't even know how to explain how I got into these roads, but I just kind of got in this tangent of following these roads, and they took me to Leadville here in Colorado. And this, I had not investigated this. I had not investigated where I ended up going, but I realized I was in a Prospect Mountain. I was kind of going, it's interesting, gold prospecting, blah blah blah. Did some cross-referencing. Suddenly I'm finding out about a guy named J.J. Brown, Joseph James Brown. And I'm going, Brown? I mean, it literally was like that. I was looking at Leadville. One of the first things that popped up was this guy named Brown. And I'm going, holy God, it's House of Brown. But it's in Leadville, Colorado. And I'm thinking, and he's a gold miner, and he's a very famous gold, or rather, he was a rich gold miner at the end of the 1800s. And I was like, wow. And then I go, holy moly, he married, what's her face? Come on, Eric. The unsinkable Molly Brown, who was an international icon in her day and still is known. She was, portrayed in the movie Titanic by Kathy Bates, and in my life, I've always been aware of the unsinkable Molly Brown. I guess they've had a play about her and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going, wow, not only do we have a gold miner, but now we're associated with a famous, iconic kind of personality. The thing about Molly Brown, when I studied her a little bit after figuring this part out, was that, she didn't go down with the ship and all that, but what she was known for, the reason she had this persona of being so strong was that she forced the guys rowing her lifeboat to go back and pick up more people in the water, and they didn't want to because everyone was scared of going down. When ships go down, really big ships, they tend to pull down little craft around them or people by suction, and she forced them. I don't know what she did, but she must have been really tough, and so they went back and saved, I think, two people, which, in retrospect, for those two people, a hell of a big deal. But anyway, so she became famous and everybody loved her and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, wow, now we got the Molly Brown. It's the Molly Brown house. This is how you get with treasure hunt. You know, you get so into it. And then I find I'm kind of looking in Leadville and I can't really find his house, the Browns' house. I read that they did have a house, but it was kind of like you couldn't find it, or it wasn't there anymore, or no one was really sure where it had been, or it had been because what they did was they went to they went to oh, for God's sakes, they went to they went here. I didn't realize it was that far away. Wow, it's quite a ways away. Anyway, they went to Denver, and they had two homes. They had a home in the middle of Denver, and then they have a home that I'll show you in a second. Now, the northern house is just a big mansion they had that doesn't really mean a whole lot, I don't think, to anyone. It's right here. It is an actual museum. But that was the main residence of the Browns. They then became separated, and they never got divorced. They were very progressive for their time. They were very, you know, and they were rich. They were very extremely well-to-do. Obviously, if you look at, I mean, if you look at that, that's pretty impressive. Oh wow! Holy moly! That's their house? Seriously? No, 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 no. That can't be their house. This one down here must be their. Okay. I think that was a church. Okay, this is their house. Yeah, Molly Brown's House Museum. Now, that's a pretty cool house to live in back in the day. However, they had another residence to the south, which was their summer retreat. It gives you an idea of how times change, because I can only assume that the summer retreat was maybe a little bit remote at the time, but no longer, right? So, their southernmost house, Molly Brown inherited, by the way, when they separated. She got both the houses. She got this one, and then she got this one, the Molly Brown summer house. Now, as you'll see later on when I'm doing the POV, when I'm actually in Colorado and in Denver, this place here, man, it's yeah, there it is. Well, you'll never see that because where I ended up was, let's just say this, they're not real friendly. You'll see. It's kind of walled off. It's posted 24-hour surveillance. I mean, it's a little bit ludicrous. You're kind of like, what? Why is this place like Fort Knox? I have no idea. All I know is I tried to go there. You'll see later, and I mean, basically it was like when you read the sign, you're already trespassing. It was one of those deals. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, well, wherever this house is, it's got to have, you know, a creek below it, right? Because in the poem, we're talking about a creek. There'll be no paddle up your creek, heavy loads, water high, take it in a canyon, warm waters. All of this stuff is about water. And so I'm kind of thinking of the two houses, which one is the one that has water? Well, not only does it have water, but it's got Bear Creek. And I'm thinking, now see, there's another thing, and some of you people will know what I'm talking about. In fact, in the introduction, I talked about it. You have a tendency, though, to just put everything together when you're, you know, your brain is already wired to do this just for survival in prehistoric times. So we've grown up to be animals that, I'm sure like a lot of animals, we've learned to put things together. You figure out your environment. It's part of figuring out your environment and surviving and escaping danger and stuff. You know, you can put together things. And when you're treasure hunting and you're being given clues, you really do that a lot. Too much. It's almost something you have to turn off. And I've watched a bunch of vlogs, video logs, and people are out there doing exactly what I'm doing, and they talk about it in their own way. They talk about, well, I was sure it was here, but it wasn't, and I had put this and this together, but it wasn't, and you're like, wow. And I do the same thing too in my own way, except on this particular trip, I really believe I'm onto something. Now, I'll tell you before you go any further, I didn't find the treasure. If I had found the treasure, it would be in the news, right? I mean, because my personal plan is I'm going to go see Mr. Fenn. Now, he may not be real happy with me because of something I said at the very end of this whole thing, the last video. I'm not going to say that was sour grapes, but I will say this. I think what he is doing is incredibly cool. And I do say that at the end, too. It's an incredibly cool thing. It gives a lot of people, and this may be a sad commentary on most of our lives, because I don't think it's about today or, whatever. I think it's kind of true of life in general. There's not a lot exciting going on in most people's lives. The smart people make things exciting about their lives. They find things to do. They look for things to be interesting. You know what I mean? And that's part of having an active and curious mind. So that when you wake up every day, you have something mapped out that's really cool that you want to do. That's the way I think you should go through life. So anyway, back to this. I'm looking at the Molly Brown summer house. I find this creek. I find out some things about the creek. I just, for shits and giggles, I put in Bear Creek loads, right? Excuse me, just heavy loads and water high. First thing I find out is loads refers, in many waterways, in many bodies of water, loads is a very, very common thing. It refers to accumulations. So you have accumulations in Bear Creek of pollutants. Bad thing. In some areas, you have silt accumulations. But in Bear Creek, what stood out was the accumulations of pollution like nitrates and stuff. Nitrates come from our things we put on our lawns, weed killers and things like that. It's a very common problem in the United States. We essentially have been poisoning our water supplies for decades. And a big part of the thing has been, pesticides and fertilizer. Excuse me. Another thing that struck me almost immediately when I hit on this part of the, as I was going along and found this Molly Brown summer house, Forrest Fenn has talked about, he went to Texas A&M and he only was there for a few days. He actually went surreptitiously. He went with his friends. He kind of was able to sign up. Shows you what kind of different times it was. He gets a cadet uniform and all this. They wore cadet uniforms. I don't think they do today. He kind of just signs up and goes to school for a few days. I mean, pretty amazing. Tells you a lot about Forrest Fenn. The guy is really he's a rebel. There's no doubt about it. The more you read about Forrest Fenn, he is a rebellious person. He's a kind of I like to do what I like to do, and he's very slick. So he will look you in the eye and lie to you. He would probably call it a fib or an embellishment. Or he might just call it a lie. I'm really sorry I'm having this problem with my throat being so dry. Anyway, knowing that he had this part of his life, he's talked in a couple of interviews about not being able to go to college, and now he's too old to go to college. And of course, he's obviously an extremely well-read man. He's written numerous books, so I mean, he knows what he's doing. But look at all of this stuff around here: Yale Avenue, Vassar Avenue, Harvard Drive. I was just knocked out by all this stuff. I was like, wow, Dartmouth Avenue, all these referrals, Cornell Avenue, all these referrals to colleges, and I thought, it kind of got my spidey senses going a little strange. But, again, the way your mind works. Am I putting too much thought into that? It just seemed unusual. Then I go, wait a minute, Wadsworth Boulevard. Now, the first time I saw this, I was so dumb, I forgot the guy's name is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. So I immediately said, Wadsworth, that's a poet. I'm not really sure what this was named for, Wadsworth Boulevard, but then I look to the left and I go, holy moly, there's Kipling Parkway. Again, coincidence? A poet right there? I know what you could be thinking. You're saying, yeah, it's that condition that you're putting all these things together because you're looking for an end result. Okay, I understand that. That could be very well true. But I'm just saying, as far as an idea for a trip, I don't think this is a bad idea. And I want to make something very clear about this whole trip. This trip, as you'll see, turns into something near the end. I mean, we'll find something that is really, I never thought in a million years I'd find it, and it really sticks out. You talk about a blaze. This is a blaze. However, because of things Fenn has said, and he has said a lot, kind of have to think of it, maybe, maybe not, don't know. But you'll see if you bother watching this. I know for some people, the minute they find out this is about Denver, Colorado, they're writing it off. Folks, look at this. Forrest Fenn said Forrest Fenn said this treasure's in the Rocky Mountains. He never said it's not in a city. And he has said numerous times, you got to think outside the box to find this. He has clues that I will agree. I'm aware. Let me tell you something. I didn't read Thrill of the Chase until I got done with this trip. And I'll probably refer to that in the videos you're going to see. I have read it since. He has clues that point other places, but the clues don't necessarily not point here either. You know what I'm saying? The guy is just really... There's so many things that can apply to so many places, and I know that everyone thinks they know where it's at, and so they just go, Denver, Colorado is completely insane. As it turns out, this doesn't even end up in Denver. It ends up outside of Denver, but it starts in Denver. Put in below the house of Brown. Now, obvious, put in is a boating phrase, meaning you put your boat in the water, and that's fine with me. So you start here, and then you follow this. And I actually believed, or believe, that it could be right in here, in Bear Creek. When you get to Bear Creek, you find out that it is just like you would expect. It is a it looks really small here, but then when you go there, or you look at it like, well, let's just do it. Let's just do it. Okay. There's Bear Creek. Right? As you can see, it's real. It's real woods. You could go in here and you could, here's the creek itself. You can go in here and you can, there's the creek itself right there. So you can go, and it goes way down there. So when you get into this area, as I'm going to do in the near eclipse coming up, and of course, remember again, these are all point of view. So these are me actually on the ground. It's not like right now where I'm doing a retro. These will be me on this, as I'm finding stuff. And there's kind of some embarrassing stuff, kind of shows my complete lack of woodsmanship. And really, I wasn't just a dumbass of incredible proportions, I must say. These here are my buddies. I'm not going to get into that right now. But anyway, and while we're here, let's just go up here. But folks, you see what I'm saying, right? House of Brown, Molly Brown and Joe Brown, later got separated. She got both houses. They never divorced. They stayed good friends for the rest of their lives. It's kind of like, wow. This was like in the turn of the century, I want to say Titanic went down in 1912. She may have actually become famous after she was with Joe Brown, J.J. Brown. But here's something that you'll see too in the upcoming videos. I try to go to here. This is the summer house. I try to go here. I go here, and boy, oh boy, you don't want to go in here. This place, the northern house of theirs is a residence that's an actual open museum, which I never make it to, and you'll hear me referring to go to it. Well, I never go to it. But this place is the summer house, and I don't know why. I don't know if they've had a lot of people try to break into this house because of its significance historically or what. But boy, this sign that you'll see later on, you can't see it from here. It's right there, actually. You drive in here, and it's basically, it's like, oh, there's the Google car. But you drive in to see the camera. But you drive in there, and basically it's like, we have snipers on the rooftop. It's not quite that bad, but it's pretty insistent that you get the hell away from this house. 24-hour surveillance will come and get you. Our cameras are watching. It's really, I guess they've had issues. I don't know. But here we are in Wadsworth. So, that having been said, the rest of this trip to Colorado, to Denver, you can take it for what you want. You can say it's the stupidest idea you've ever heard of. You cannot watch anymore. I will say this, I throw in things I've, from the internet that Fenn has said. I throw in just a lot of stuff to kind of complement what I'm finding or saying at the time. So I really enjoyed making it. I'm going to make another one. I'm going to do another Fenn trip. And before I go and turn you over to the point of view, voice, etc., that occurred back in middle of August, last month, I do want to say this. I did say some bad things at the end about Trump, Jesus. I did say some bad things at the end about Fenn. Only in that I infer some things about his reasons for doing this. Take it for what you want. I do think this idea of what we're all involved in here gives us all a fun thing to do. I take it as that. I'm an adult. I'm an older man. I'm cautious with my money. This trip to Denver, for any people out there interested, I'm coming from South Carolina, went up to North Carolina to fly out, went to Denver. I was there for 4 days of active hunting with a relatively nice hotel, and well, it was a nice hotel. It was a Hampton, and then for a nice rental car, and then for pretty good eating, a couple of grand. That got me out. That I was able to drive around, have nice accommodations. So if we're talking halfway across the country. So the only thing I regret about it is it was not more time. I have cats that someone was taking care of for me, so that was kind of it's almost like having children. So I only spent a week on this particular first trip. I only spent 4 days actively searching. Pretty much got a good feel, though, for what treasure hunting's like. Not at all sure that the treasure isn't in Denver or surrounding locales, which is what I ended up having to do, go out of Denver. Not at all sure it's not there. And I think when you see me in this park, you'll say, you know what? It could change a lot of people's minds about their entire ways of looking at this treasure hunt. Folks, you don't have to be out. Fenn has even said, don't be out on the mountaintop. Well, he didn't say it, but he implied, don't be out on the mountaintop with a bighorn sheep trying to ram your butt. You know what I mean? It's not on the top of a mountain. It's not underwater. It's not at the bottom of a rapids. He went out there as an 80-year-old man, took 2 trips in and out of the woods in an afternoon from his car, right? So it's someplace you can get to in a car, and you can walk, what would we guess, 30 minutes to 45 minutes in, 30 to 40, so let's say 45 minutes in, 45 minutes out, 45 minutes in, 45 minutes out. How much is that? Okay, it's a few hours. Say an afternoon is 12 noon to 5, let's just say. maybe an hour in each time. Wow, an hour in each time. Well, I actually do that, but boy, I tell you, this whole concept of blazes, for those of us that have been actually doing this, and I am a very, very newbie to this whole cause, I understand the term blaze. There are arguments about what the important word is in this poem, because someone has said, if it wasn't Fenn, I don't know who it was, that there's one word that's the word. There's a guy who does a vlog that says it's treasure. Other people say it's the blaze. Some people like myself say it's brown because it's capitalized, home of brown. Everyone seems to have the word in their mind that's the word that kind of helps you along, but really the whole poem helps you along, and Fenn says that over and over and over. So, again, little, this. Well, I'm not going to get into it. This whole, I'm gonna. I really like the fact that this thing is going on. I'll leave it at that. I really do. I'll just say what I said near the end, but I say it in different terms. The fact that no one's found this in 7 years bothers me. The fact that Fenn has nonchalantly said, if it's, if they're still looking for it in 500 years, that's fine. That bothers me. Because I would be thinking, if I was Fenn or anybody, I'd say, if they're looking in 500 years, there's a problem here, right? I don't know, but on the other hand, I'm glad no one's found it. But I think every year that goes by, other people are going to start saying, for all of Fenn saying this is a really, here we go again. Mr. Fenn, if you're watching this, I just want to apologize and say this. This is just something in my brain I can't quite get out of. Every year that goes by, it's harder to kind of think this is a solve, as they say. I've learned all these terms, that this is solvable, that there's a solve for this particular puzzle, which is what I'll call your poem. Your poem's a puzzle, right? It's a map, as you have said, kind of a metaphorical map, I guess you could say, to the treasure. But no one's found it that we know of. I guess I'd feel better if someone had actually gone out there on Mr. Fenn's behalf and notified him that treasure still exists. But there's a guy who hasn't even told his wife or his kids. Or I'm not sure if he has kids. Yeah, he has kids. Of course he does. He has 2 daughters. But I will say this to Mr. Fenn and anyone else. This is a super cool idea. It really, and what am I even saying this for? I'm glad no one's found it, right? I'm glad no one's found it. I'm going to be the one to find it. By God. Maybe. I hope. We all feel that way, right? I just hope no one's found it. I hope no one's found it and not told Mr. Fenn and been worried about the legal consequences, etc. Because then I saw some video where the guy takes you right to the spot, and it's hilarious because he claims he's found where the treasure was, but is no more. And so he goes, and we go through all the rigmarole of getting there, and then there's like a little hole in the ground. It's perfectly square, like where the chest was. And I'm like, well, that's convenient. I don't think it was supposed to be buried. I'm pretty sure I saw a video of that. There's some really, the videos, some of them are really boring. I mean, they're just people out kind of lost in the woods going, no, I think it's in a cave. It's not in the cave. I don't think he'd be in a cave, folks. He's not climbing up rock. He's not climbing up walk walls, okay? Later. Hope you enjoy the rest of my trip to Colorado.